The massive alien conference vessel hung silently in deep space, its crystalline hull reflecting the distant starlight. Captain J. Park stood at the observation deck, his dark eyes scanning the intricate control panels of the human diplomatic shuttle. Behind him, Hai Kim adjusted her communication headset, her fingers tapping nervously against her sleeve. This was humanity's first official contact with the Galactic Council, a gathering of 17 advanced civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. Humans were the newest, youngest, and most unpredictable species to ever request membership. The alien representatives watched the human delegation with a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed skepticism. Krell, the primary council representative from the Orion Confederation, had spent months preparing for this moment. His tentacle-like appendages moved with calculated precision as he reviewed the human delegation's credentials. "They're just different," Krell muttered to his assistant, a silicon-based life form named Vex. The humans didn't follow any of the expected diplomatic protocols. Their technology was chaotic, their communication patterns erratic, and their problem-solving methods bordered on what other species would consider insanity. J. Park wasn't worried. He had spent years in special operations navigating complex international conflicts on Earth. This was just another negotiation, albeit on a much larger scale. When the communication channel opened, something unexpected happened. Instead of a formal greeting, Park pulled out a small silver flask from his uniform pocket. The alien delegates froze, their communication translators working overtime to understand this bizarre gesture. "I believe in breaking ice," Park said, his voice calm and steady. Literally and figuratively. Before anyone could respond, he took a swift drink and then placed the flask on the negotiation table. The transparent surface of the table began to change colors, reacting to the liquid's molecular composition. Krell's tentacles twitched in confusion. What the aliens didn't know was that Park's flask contained a specially designed diplomatic compound, a mixture of scientific breakthrough and cultural symbolism. The liquid was actually an advanced nanotechnological solution that could temporarily bridge communication barriers. As the liquid spread across the table, holographic representations began to form. Complex mathematical equations, cultural images, and technological schematics started dancing between the human and alien delegates. It was like watching a living, breathing conversation that transcended traditional communication methods. Hai Kim suppressed a smile. This was classic human innovation, turning a potential diplomatic disaster into an opportunity for connection. Krell's initial shock transformed into fascination. The nanoliquid was revealing layers of human potential that the Galactic Council had completely misunderstood. Humans weren't just another species. They were a dynamic, adaptive civilization with an unprecedented capacity for innovation. "You planned this," Krell stated, more as an observation than a question. Park simply raised an eyebrow. "Sometimes the best way to communicate is to show, not tell." The other alien delegates leaned forward, their various sensory organs processing the rapidly changing holographic display. Technological concepts that had taken their civilization centuries to develop were being casually demonstrated by these humans in minutes. What was supposed to be a standard first contact meeting had turned into something extraordinary. The humans had not just entered the galactic stage, they had essentially rewritten the rules of engagement. As the meeting continued, it became clear that humanity would not be just another member of the Galactic Council. They would be a force that would challenge, disrupt, and ultimately transform the existing galactic order. J. Park looked at Hai Kim and winked. Another day at the office. The shuttle's communication systems hummed with newfound energy, carrying the first seeds of what would become a legendary moment in interstellar diplomacy. Humans had arrived and the galaxy would never be the same. In that moment, surrounded by ancient alien civilizations, humanity showed that sometimes all it takes is a simple drink to change everything. The alarm systems blared across the research facility, casting an eerie red glow on the worried faces of Dr. Wu Choi and his team. Outside the reinforced windows, a massive energy storm threatened to consume 3 major planetary systems, something no galactic civilization had ever successfully stopped before. Sung Lee, the lead engineer, was frantically running complex calculations on multiple holographic screens. Each simulation showed the same devastating result: total planetary destruction within 72 hours. The alien scientific community had already declared the situation hopeless, recommending evacuation of the affected star systems. But humans didn't understand the word impossible. Dr. Choi walked around the central research platform, his mind racing. Traditional technological approaches had failed. The energy storm, a quantum-level disruption unlike anything previously recorded, seemed to consume and adapt to every defensive mechanism thrown at it. "We need something completely different," he muttered, pulling out a strange device from his personal toolkit. It looked like a combination of an old motorcycle part, a quantum processor, and what seemed to be a modified coffee machine component. Sung. Lee raised an eyebrow. "Professor, are you serious?" The device was something Choi had been experimenting with during his off hours. A hybrid technological solution that combined principles from completely unrelated scientific domains: mechanical engineering, quantum physics, and surprisingly, fluid dynamics were about to have a very strange marriage. As the team watched, Choi began connecting seemingly random components. Where alien scientists saw chaos, he saw potential. Each piece was carefully selected not for its individual capability, but for how it might interact with the others. The quantum processor began to hum. Strange electrical patterns started dancing across its surface, creating complex geometric shapes that defied conventional mathematical understanding. Sung Lee's monitoring systems could barely track the rapid changes. Outside, the energy storm continued its relentless approach. Millions of lives hung in the balance. Choi's unconventional device started to pulse with an unusual rhythm. It wasn't generating power in the traditional sense, but was instead creating a complex interference pattern that could potentially destabilize the quantum disruption. "This is going to work," Choi said quietly, more to himself than to his team. The alien observation team, connected through a long-range communication channel, watched in stunned silence. Humans were doing something no one had ever attempted, trying to solve an impossible problem with what appeared to be completely random technology. As the device reached its peak operational frequency, something extraordinary happened. The energy storm outside began to lose its structural integrity. Complex quantum waves started breaking down, revealing patterns that no previous scientific model had ever predicted. Sung Lee's monitoring systems went crazy. Numbers and graphs were changing faster than human eyes could follow. The impossible was happening right in front of them. Within 30 minutes, what was supposed to be a civilization-ending event was reduced to nothing more than a minor energy disturbance. 3 planetary systems that were moments away from total destruction were now safe. The alien scientific community was speechless. How could humans solve a problem that had stumped advanced civilizations for centuries? Dr. Choi simply smiled and took a sip of coffee. To him, this was just another day at the office. "Sometimes," he told Sung Lee, "you need to think like something other than a scientist. You need to think like a human." The research facility erupted in cheers. They had just changed the course of galactic history, and they did it with a device that looked like it was cobbled together from spare parts in a garage. As reports began streaming in from the saved planetary systems, it became clear that humanity had once again proven itself to be the most adaptable and innovative species in the known universe. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Where other civilizations saw limitations, humans saw opportunities. Where others saw complexity, humans saw simple solutions waiting to be discovered. Just another day of human innovation. The battlefield was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Commander Dae Kwan stood on the holographic command deck, watching as human technological adaptations completely transformed modern warfare. Traditional alien military strategies relied on complex, predetermined battle algorithms. Humans introduced something completely different: unpredictable adaptive combat technology that changed faster than enemy systems could analyze. Kai Kim, the strategic analyst, had developed a revolutionary combat interface. It wasn't just a weapon system. It was a living, breathing technological organism that learned and adapted in real time. Where alien technologies followed strict programmed protocols, human technology seemed to have a mind of its own. The current conflict involved defending a critical interstellar trading route against a technologically advanced aggressive species known as the Nexus Collective. Previous encounters had always ended in devastating losses for defending forces. But humans changed everything. Daquan's combat units weren't using traditional weapons. Instead, they deployed nano-adaptive combat platforms that could transform their entire operational structure within milliseconds. One moment, a defensive shield. The next, an offensive weapon system. Yuna Shin, the research lead, had integrated artificial intelligence with human creativity in ways no civilization had ever imagined. Their combat systems didn't just respond to threats. They anticipated, predicted, and created entirely new solution pathways. The Nexus Collective's advanced warships approached, expecting another standard engagement. They carried technologies that had conquered hundreds of planetary systems. Their computational war models predicted absolute victory. They were wrong. As the first wave of attacks began, human technological platforms started doing something completely unexpected. They didn't just defend or counterattack. They began reconstructing the fundamental operational parameters of the battlefield itself. Communication frequencies shifted randomly. Weapon signatures became impossible to track. Defensive protocols transformed faster than enemy targeting systems could comprehend. Kai Kim watched with a slight smile. This wasn't just warfare. This was technological art. The human combat platforms began using the enemy's own technological infrastructure against them. They didn't just block attacks. They redirected, transformed, and repurposed incoming technological signals. What should have been a devastating assault became a complex dance of technological adaptation. Within hours, the Nexus Collective's entire invasion force was rendered completely ineffective, not through destruction, but through systematic technological deconstruction. Commander Kwan's communication channel opened. The alien military observers were demanding explanations. How could such a young species develop such advanced combat technologies? We don't follow rules, Kwan responded simply. We create them. The battlefield transformed from a zone of potential destruction into a canvas of technological innovation. Human units weren't just fighting. They were solving complex computational challenges in real time, turning warfare into a dynamic problem-solving exercise. Yuna Shin's research had proven something fundamental. Human technology wasn't about raw power, but about adaptability, creativity, and the ability to see solutions where others saw only complications. As the engagement concluded, it became clear that humans had once again disrupted galactic understanding. They hadn't just won a battle. They had fundamentally changed how technological warfare would be understood. The Nexus Collective's computational models collapsed. Their entire strategic framework, developed over thousands of years, became obsolete in mere hours. Kai Kim made a quick notation in the mission report. Standard operational procedure. Completely rewrite the operational manual. The alien military. Observation teams could only watch in stunned silence. Humans had done more than win a battle. They had demonstrated that true technological innovation wasn't about following established rules, but about continuously creating new ones. Commander, Kwan looked at his team and nodded. Another day of showing the galaxy what human potential really meant. The stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter, reflecting the incredible technological dance that had just transformed another small corner of the universe. Human technology had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The music started softly, then erupted into a chaotic symphony that seemed to break every known musical rule. Sujin stood at the center of the massive alien cultural exchange center, her fingers dancing across an instrument that was part holographic projection, part traditional Earth guitar. Tae-han watched from the sidelines, observing how the alien delegates were reacting. Their sensory organs were shifting colors, a sign of deep emotional processing that no one had anticipated. Humans had discovered something profound. Culture was the most powerful weapon of transformation. The alien worlds had existed for millennia with rigid social structures, carefully controlled information flows, and predictable cultural expressions. Humans introduced something completely different: unfiltered, raw, and incredibly dynamic cultural experiences. Ji-un, the communication expert, had developed a revolutionary translation system that did more than convert words. It translated entire emotional landscapes, capturing the essence of human creativity in ways no technology had ever achieved before. The music Soo-jin played wasn't just sound. It was a complex narrative of human experience: pain, joy, rebellion, hope, compressed into a sonic wave that penetrated beyond traditional communication barriers. Alien representatives from 17 different civilizations sat completely still. Their advanced brains were struggling to process what they were experiencing. This wasn't just music. This was a cultural revolution packaged in sound waves. One by one, the alien delegates began to move, not in a choreographed dance, but in spontaneous, individual expressions of emotional response. Some swayed, some changed colors, some produced sounds that resembled both crying and laughter. Tae-han smiled. Humans had just done something extraordinary. They had created a universal language of emotion that transcended biological differences. The cultural transmission wasn't limited to music. Human art, literature, philosophical concepts, and social dynamics were spreading across the galaxy like an unstoppable wave. Where alien civilizations had carefully controlled cultural exchanges, humans introduced complete, unfiltered cultural chaos. A holographic display began showing human artistic expressions, paintings that broke every known visual representation rule, literary works that challenged fundamental understanding of narrative structure, philosophical concepts that questioned everything these ancient civilizations believed about existence. Hume's communication systems were working overtime. They weren't just translating words. They were creating bridges of understanding that had never existed before. The alien sociological research teams were overwhelmed. Humans weren't just sharing culture. They were fundamentally reshaping how cultural exchange could happen. Traditional barriers of communication, understanding, and social interaction were dissolving. Soo-jin finished her musical performance. The room remained silent for several moments. Then, unexpectedly, the alien delegates began producing sounds that resembled applause but were completely unique to their own biological structures. "We don't just communicate," Tae-han said quietly to the chief alien cultural administrator. "We connect." The cultural revolution was happening on multiple levels. Human entertainment was challenging established thought patterns. Their approach to social interactions was breaking down centuries of rigid communication protocols. Films that mixed genres, music that destroyed traditional harmonic structures, art that challenged every known visual representation, philosophical discussions that questioned fundamental universal concepts. Humans were introducing something revolutionary: the idea that culture is not a fixed concept, but a living, breathing, constantly evolving experience. The alien civilizations were discovering that humans were not just a new species. They were a cultural force that would transform everything they understood about communication, art, and social interaction. As the cultural exchange session concluded, something fundamental had changed. The galaxy would never be the same. Tae-han looked at Soo-jin and Ji-un. Just another day of showing the universe what human creativity really meant. The stars outside seemed to pulse with a new kind of energy, the energy of cultural transformation, powered by human imagination. The galactic conference chamber fell silent as Minho Park walked through the massive doors. Representatives from 17 advanced civilizations turned their attention to the human diplomatic strategist, their various sensory organs twitching with a mixture of respect and cautious anticipation. Humanity had become something more than just another species in the universe. They were now the ultimate problem solvers, the unpredictable innovators that could transform impossible challenges into routine solutions. Bo-gum Kim stood behind Minho, his posture relaxed but alert. The alien liaison, Rin Seo, watched carefully as the human delegation prepared to address the most complex challenge the galaxy had ever faced. A massive quantum disruption was threatening to destabilize multiple star systems. Previous attempts by advanced civilizations had failed spectacularly. The Galactic Council had exhausted every known technological and strategic approach. Minho Park stepped forward carrying nothing more than a small tablet and what appeared to be a coffee mug. "We have a solution," he said simply. The alien representatives exchanged glances. Humans had a reputation for making such statements and then delivering the impossible. 3 standard days earlier, no one believed the quantum disruption could be contained. Now, Minho was about to prove them wrong. Again. The tablet came to life, projecting a holographic model that seemed to dance, with impossible complexity. Where other civilizations saw an uncontrollable quantum event, humans saw a puzzle waiting to be solved. Bo-gum's fingers moved quickly, translating the complex human strategy into formats that other species could understand. It was more than a technical solution. It was a complete reimagining of how quantum systems could be managed. Rin Seo watched the alien delegates. Their reactions ranged from confusion to growing excitement. Humans had done it again, turned an apocalyptic threat into another day of problem-solving. The quantum disruption model began to stabilize. Complex energy patterns that had defied understanding for centuries suddenly became manageable. The human approach wasn't about fighting the system. It was about understanding and redirecting its fundamental nature. Minho took a sip from his coffee mug, a gesture that seemed both casual and profoundly confident. Humanity's reputation had been built on moments like these. Where other civilizations saw limitations, humans saw opportunities. Where others saw complexity, humans saw simple solutions waiting to be discovered. The Galactic Council's senior representatives began discussing the implications. Humans had become more than just another species. They were the galaxy's ultimate troubleshooters, the civilization that could solve problems no one else could even understand. Technological innovations, cultural transformations, diplomatic breakthroughs, humans had rewritten the rules of galactic interaction in less than a single generation. Bo-gum looked at Minho and smiled. Another impossible problem solved before lunch. The holographic display continued to show the quantum disruption being systematically dismantled. What should have destroyed multiple star systems was now being transformed into a manageable energy flow that could potentially be used as a new form of renewable power. Typical humans. One alien representative muttered. They don't just solve problems. They turn them into opportunities. As the conference concluded, it became clear that humanity had achieved something extraordinary. They weren't just members of the galactic community. They were its most dynamic and unpredictable force. Minho Park finished his coffee, placed the mug down, and looked at the stunned alien delegates. "Any other problems you'd like us to solve?" he asked casually. The galaxy had changed, and humans were the reason why. Outside the conference chamber, stars continued their ancient dance. But now they seemed to shine a little brighter, reflecting the incredible potential of a species that refused to accept the word impossible. Just another day in the human adventure of galactic exploration.